as he anchored Lillian's arm around his waist. "I should cocoa," Lillian exclaimed. "We leave that to the Lucinda Chumley Smythes of this world, don't we, Mary? We're just drivers who taxi the pilots back to the ferry pool at Rixley. We let the toffee-nosed daredevils of this world do the flying, ta very much." For a while Mary listened to their chatter, then chose to lag behind. Soon the brash music and the stallholders' cries drowned out Lillian and her brand-new beau's teasing voices. This was the last Mary would see of her friend all evening, she forecast, as she watched their back views disappear under the red and white striped awning of the shooting gallery. She breathed in the sweet, earthy smell of trampled grass, heard the dull thump of dodgem cars colliding, and watched sparks fly from the overhead mesh. "Got a light, love?" a man asked as she walked on towards the moon rocket ride. He was a fisherman type, dressed in cable-knit sweater and rubber boots, holding the stub of a cigarette between nicotine-stained fingers. His face was in shadow, eyes gleaming, and his tone implied that he expected more than a light if she stopped to oblige. So Mary shook her head and concentrated on the huge sign ahead. Moon Rocket, Thrill Ride of the Year, with a metal dome rising high behind it. Under the brightly lit canopy there were a dozen or so rocket-shaped cars, ready to whirl passengers around a central pillar to which they were attached by long steel arms. Why not give it a go? Mary thought. She handed over her coppers and chose an empty space rocket. As she waited for the ride to fill up, she began to think about the drive home from the Yorkshire fishing port of Highcliffe to Rixley. Shall I wait for Lillian, or leave her to find her own way? She wondered, as the final door clicked shut and the moon rocket shot into action. There was an excited yelp from a pair of lads in the car in front, and Mary just had time to snatch her cap from her head before she was thrust backwards against the wooden backrest, and the lights of the fairground became a blur. Her rocket rose and tilted on its steel arm. Music thumped through a loudspeaker. The wind caught her hair. "I'm flying." High in the air, with pale blobs of faces staring up at her, tilting inwards, speeding on. If only, if only. Still, Mary's heart lifted with the thrill of it, the surge of exhilaration at being airborne that ended all too soon as the machine slowed and her space rocket dipped to the ground. Suddenly her mood changed. She was sick of the funfair, the gaudiness and shallowness, the whipping up of excitement, the false thrills. It had been a long day, driving 2 pilots to a ferry pool in the northeast, where she had met up with fellow driver Lillian for the return journey. They'd taken in the travelling fare at Highcliffe en route because it happened to be there, and because they were 2 girls at a loose end on their Friday night off. And why not ride the helter-skelter and pick up a couple of chaps while they were there? It had seemed a good idea at the time. "No need to wait for me." Lillian caught up with Mary beside the entrance to the ghost train. She still had her sailor boy in tow and a teddy bear prize tucked under her arm. "Spanner here rides a motorbike. He's promised to give me a lift home." Mary nodded and smiled. "Don't worry, I'll look after her." Spanner slipped an arm around Lillian's waist. The ghost train doors flew open, and 3 laden carriages rattled to a stop. Breathless passengers tumbled out. Mary understood that the rides provided moments of escape for fishermen's wives whose homes had been flattened by Luftwaffe bombs, for sailors on leave like Spanner, and for drivers like themselves who dutifully ferried pilots to aerodromes scattered along the east coast of England and across the Yorkshire wolds and moors. She accepted all that, but for the moment she'd had her fill. "Have a grand time," she told Lillian with a faint smile. "We will," Lillian and Spanner chimed as they joined the queue for the ghost train. For Mary, there was a dark, solitary drive ahead, followed by a night in the narrow bed in her Nissen hut billet, a new chit to pick up in the morning, and, no doubt, another long, arduous day tomorrow. Meanwhile,